Pick 1212. Copy, top of here. Got you loud and clear. Green, wrong side.
The Performance Motorsports Network presents Burning Rubber Radio.
Burning rubber, baby.
I know what the tradition is. You don't even have to explain it. And here it is. Burning rubber, baby!
Now, from the White Lightning TV studios in Statesville, North Carolina, here is your host, Andy DeLay.
Hey, it's producer Wayne on the Performance Motorsports Network, the Tan Talk Radio Network, Wingding.tv. And you're probably looking over to your right over there of the screen of what would normally have been Andy DeLay. Andy is out on personal leave this week, hanging out with the family and doing some stuff. But I get joined by an even cooler co-host, you know, the founder of Drive Refine, former NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series driver, former ARCA Menards Series driver. I mean, just, you know, all-around badass racer, Joey Coulter.
Thanks for having me. It's going to be fun. I had to, it's funny, you can tell that budget cutbacks are getting serious when the co-host has got to be that much lighter than the original host just to save some weight.
Well, I was going to say, you're sitting in Andy's chair there, and I think you got a little more space than usual, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, these the armrests are nice and flared out like a quarter panel should be.
Andy, if you're listening, that means you done farted in the damn thing too much. Oh man, well Joey, again, always good to have you around. Always good to have you around on the show here, buddy. And so, you know, for folks that are curious that may have never met Joey Coulter before today's episode, which we actually just found out, we picked up a brand new affiliate, Oldies 101.5 out of Laramie, Wyoming. So welcome aboard to all of our folks listening to the old school jams on 101.5 out in Wyoming. And so for all these new fans here, Joey, tell them a little bit about yourself real quick in case they don't know who you are.
So I've just been racing forever. Started in go-karts when I was 8. And when I was 15, got into the short track scene down here in Florida and did some roundy round stuff. And then got in the Hooters Pro Cup Series back when it was a thing. Moved into the ARCA Series in 2009 and 10, which is for better for worse, where I first encountered this burning rubber radio thing. And the rest is history. Got a good little run in the Craftsman Truck Series and won a race, almost won a championship, Rookie of the Year 1 year, got some Xfinity starts sprinkled in there throughout then, and now I'm just a washed up tour modified racer doing guest host stuff.
No, now you forgot a very important thing in there too. You are also the founder and current owner of Drive Refine, and that being something where it's you know, as your tagline properly puts it, it's not just driver coaching, it's Drive Refine. Because at that, I mean, you really get down to the nitty gritty and working with drivers, you know, the crew chiefs, you know, and really just kind of fine tuning that communication process.
Yeah, there's a ton that goes into it, and the whole the genesis of Drive Refine was just all about trying to teach the complicated things to these drivers when the racing part isn't so complicated. There's not so much pressure. And it's on a smaller stage where a mistake isn't going to cost you so much, right? You know, it's any little thing can derail a driving career in the wrong spot. So it's we spend a lot of time talking about how to communicate with crew chiefs. We spend a lot of time going over the feel of a car and how to explain it, how to understand it. And that gets into a little bit of the mechanics. It gets a lot into what I call racecraft, the strategy of racing, you know when to hold them, know when to fold them kind of stuff.
Right.
But it's more the Monday through Friday side of driving that gets you better prepared for doing your job on the weekends.
See, and that's you know, I think that's where a lot of people, you know, they're underprepared in that department too. And yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of it with some of the guys that have come up through the top 3 series in NASCAR over the years, where, you know, they might be one of the best steering wheel holders you've got out there on the racetrack, but God knows their communication skills are lackluster. So at that point, I would dare say that's probably another reason why Drive Refine was brought up. Like you said, it's the Monday through Friday back door side of things or the back office side of things when it comes to being out there on the racetrack. But we've got to get everything prepared here for this week on the show before we get ready to take our first foreign fuel. We were supposed to have a guest this week, and won't name names, but let's just say it's a legend that sadly didn't show up this week, and I'm kind of disappointed in that fact because I actually was looking forward to talking to him. I know you were looking forward to talking to him too, Joey. But instead, we're gonna pretty much get into the whole Noah Gragson situation. We're going to do that after we come back from break, and then we've got to talk about the back-to-back wins for Chris Buescher this past weekend in Michigan and the weekend before at Richmond. So, I mean, two different style tracks, two totally different races all in all with rain and everything like that involved. But I'll tell you what, we'll talk about it when we come back later on in the show. Right now, we are going to step aside. We're going to take our first foreign fuel, and when we do come back, we're going to be digging into the whole thing with Noah Gragson.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
I'm Andy DeLay, and you're listening to Burning Rubber Radio on the Performance Motorsports Network.
Want to maximize your driving potential? Drive Refine is the driver optimization program for you. Led by NASCAR winning driver Joey Coulter. No matter if you race locally, nationally, or on a simulator, with a little or a lot of experience, Drive Refine focuses on your tuning scale to optimize communication between the driver and their crew chief. Visit driverefine.com for more information today.
Hey, this is former NASCAR driver Joey Coulter. This isn't your typical driver coaching. This is Drive Refine.
Burning Rubber Radio is social. Like the show at facebook.com/Burning Rubber Radio. Follow on Twitter at twitter.com/BRR_PMN. And on Instagram at instagram.com/Burning Rubber Radio. Now back to more Burning Rubber.
And we are back on Burning Rubber Radio on the Performance Motorsports Network, Tan Talk Radio Network, Wingding.tv. Wayne Owens, Joey Coulter sitting in with me this week here for Andy DeLay, who is out on a personal week this week. He's hanging out with his son Buster and getting ready to send him back to school. Actually, just like you are in a little bit here, Joey.
Yeah. Tomorrow's the big day. Got a second grader and a preschooler.
Wow, and that being Tuesday. What is it? Tuesday, August the 8th for folks that are listening to the show later on in the week here. Joey's kids are back in school now, so he's got a little bit more time to focus on that Drive Refine and get those drivers whipped into shape once again. So. And speaking of getting drivers whipped into shape and understanding things a little bit here, we're going to go ahead and get into the elephant of the room here, and that being the Noah Gragson situation. And I'm not going to lie, I heard about it over the weekend. Andy and all of our folks that we have in our text thread. So myself, Taylor, Zach, John, Andy, everybody that's involved in the show typically was talking about the Gragson situation, but they were being very vague about it. So I'm thinking, okay, what in the world is going on here that needed to be so heavily talked about? And that being that apparently Noah Gragson liked a meme on Instagram that was, dare I say, tasteless? and because of the same, I mean, somebody was trying to use a play on words from the new Little Mermaid movie, where somebody had superimposed George Floyd's face on Sebastian the Crab, and had created a thing that said under the knee, and like you're trying to use the play on words for under the sea. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I looked at the meme, and at first, had it not been for the fact that Floyd's face was actually superimposed on there, I don't think there would have been too much of an issue with it. But the fact is that there is, and that Noah made a very boneheaded move in liking that, and with liking that meme, is now indefinitely suspended from NASCAR.
Yeah, it's it's interesting because I mainly focus on a lot of the driving, the actual driving with drivers. I don't do a lot of managing. I don't do a lot of the PR coaching or anything like that. But regardless of who's working with these drivers, our main phrase all the time is like, this is your job. You're responsible for more than just holding the steering wheel and finding fourth gear on a restart. Like,
right.
You have to be responsible for everything you do. And, to quote, I think it was Uncle Ben from Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. Mm-hmm. And when you step into that role, when you become a superstar, you have to pay attention to everything. It could have been, I have no idea, right? But it could have been a complete accident. But either way, you got to be paying attention. You have to pay attention. If it wasn't an accident, again, like, pay attention. It's not, nothing really is worth that risk, whether you're a decent human being or you aren't.
Right.
It's a shame, but again, it's kind of like we were talking about the Kyle Busch situation off air. You got to know your situation. You got to know your surroundings. You got to know your audience. Like, you can't leave that kind of stuff open. You know what I mean? You just can't.
Yeah, no, situational awareness is so key in the world nowadays, especially with how flagrant cancel culture is. And I mean, granted, now I'll be the first one to tell you, I personally think cancel culture is stupid. It needs to go away.
Mm-hmm.
But again, regardless of if cancel culture were here or not, it was a very boneheaded move on his part to like that post, and because knowing that people can see, Noah Gragson likes this.
Right.
And I mean, the namesake clearly is out there. But now, on the other hand, and this is where I'm going to kind of go, both barrels with NASCAR on this one here, and that being the fact that, should NASCAR have indefinitely suspended him, or in the terms of other things that have been considered racist or other things like that, where, like the incident with Kyle Larson years ago, instead of indefinitely suspending him, they forced him into sensitivity training. Why couldn't they have done that with somebody like Gragson, who is slowly rising through the ranks?
Yeah, I mean, I think all I can do is speculate when it comes to that, because I think in some of these situations, it's kind of like, okay, let's put the fire out and figure out what caused the fire, rather than let's figure out what caused the fire while the house is burning.
Right.
Maybe that's a poor analogy, but I think, again, like, I'm not even, I didn't have to do it for my wheeling licensing, but I was in the works of getting a hard card for one of the drivers I work with that runs in the top 3 series, and there's a whole sensitivity training course now. There's a gambling packet you have to go through. Like, there's all of this extra stuff now, and you can argue whether it's good, bad, and different. It doesn't matter. It's the rules. You're playing in their playground. Right. You know what the rules are. They have, I don't know it word for word, but they're pretty explicit in their zero tolerance for anything like that. And again, like, that it's at that point, logically, it's no different than passing or failing tech, right? You're either too high or you're too low, or you're right where you should be. Mm-hmm. And if you mess up and get outside that line, then guess what? They've got a punishment written in there for that rule you just broke. And that's, again, it comes down to personal responsibility and taking care of those things and paying attention to it.
Right, but then the question then becomes then when is enough too much at that point? When does it become too much? Like, okay, at that point, something small, something that could be considered small, somebody ends up, suspended for, 5 races or suspended indefinitely or, versus where, somebody else, I won't name names, but, they do something out of the ordinary and God knows the fans are in an uproar over it. And it should have been something where he was suspended for, or should have been suspended for the remainder of the season, like 10 races last year, but instead only received a 1 race suspension. So at that point, when is enough enough? When does it become too much? And then the question also becomes is when does the level of fairness kind of come to a mum as well?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Honestly, I mean, that's why I tried to stick to the driving part and not get that high up the ladder and anything else, because it's because you're going against, not even against, you have all these different factors, and the loudest one is always the court of public opinion. And again, like, times change. Things that weren't a big deal back then are a big deal now. Things that were a big deal back then aren't a big deal now.
Yep.
And that's part of the situation. It's no different than, rule changes, tracks repaving. Like, it's all part of the system. And again, you have to pay attention to that stuff. Probably should, make sure you're a decent human being, right? Like, but just pay attention. Like, that's what it comes down to. I don't think you'll ever get a balance of like what's too far, what's not far enough.
Right.
Because it's all looked at one situation at a time, and I think that's just the way it's going to be for a while.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, we can only hope that instead of looking at it, situation by situation, they start to form more of a precedent. I think would be the best way to put that, and use that precedent as their guiding scale on what they do with things, and don't just react, both barrels. I'll take a quote from a comment you made the other day, where instead of ready, aim, fire, at that point it's more some of the moves that NASCAR has made recently. It's more like ready, fire, aim at that point.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I think that's, again, just my personal opinion. Just as a whole, I mean, I think that's been some of NASCAR's issues over the last few years. Whether you think NASCAR has issues or not, I think that's kind of been a thing where they are just kind of jumping through things.
Right.
I feel like there is some disconnect in situations like these, because again, you have, there is a severe blowback. There is a lot of people that have, that can have their lives affected by something, like that. I don't want to say something as simple, but something as simple as tapping a screen twice.
Yep.
But at the same time, if you're the guy in that position of tapping that screen or not tapping that screen, you got to think about that. That has to be calculated in your, in your mind. And, again, I say that not getting into whether or not it's funny, not funny, good, bad, indifferent. Like,
right.
To me, it's all about the mindset of
it's more about the mindset of the general public, more so than the mindset of the individual person nowadays. Whereas, back 20 years ago, it was more about our individual mindset than it was the collective. And so, yeah, I mean, there's it's one of those situations, honestly, where I feel like there's still more questions than answers. But I guess we'll find out, what happens, in time. Maybe after sitting and thinking about it for a little bit, maybe they'll reinstate him and put him through a lot heavier sensitivity training. I guess time will tell as to what happens in that situation. But I will agree, though, him liking the image, just based on the image itself, was a tasteless move. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens there with Gragson. But with that said, here, folks, we want to hear your opinions too. I do believe Andy made a post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Burning Rubber Radio. Do go over there and take a look at it. Let us know your thoughts, because we would love to hear from our fans as well, and know what you guys are thinking on it. And we'll look at some of your comments over the next week, and we may use some of them on the show next week. So we'll look at that and see what we got going on there. All right, and with that said, here, folks, we are going to step aside. We're going to take our next Foreign Fuel. I'll tell you what, Joey.
Yeah.
Wardrobe change, buddy. You got a wardrobe change in there real quick, where folks see you wearing one thing. What'd you do? Go off camera real quick and hide it from me?
It's the magic of radio.
It is.
Just me being a guest host and stuff. I don't know how it works, so I didn't bring the same shirt back with me.
I was gonna say, apparently you thought this was the Oscars. You're like, whoop, change back.
I told you, I think off the air, that one of my goals was to completely ruin this for Andy. So while I have time to hold the big hammer and break things, I'm gonna break things.
Oh, that's great. I'm gonna have to up his requirements now, where he's gonna have to learn to fast change like Joey Coulter.
Yeah, well, I see the big thing was I went to the gym, and I know I'll have to call him and explain to him what those are, but yeah, that's my bad. Like again, if I was a Driver Find client, those mistakes wouldn't have been made, but I'm just happy to be here. So
some good stuff all the way around here. Well, folks, again, we're going to step aside. We're going to take our next Foreign Fuel, and when we get back, we're going to go ahead and sit down and talk about Chris Buescher's back-to-back win this past weekend in Michigan. Plus, got a little bit of SRX news and a few other things for you.
Hi, this is Larry McReynolds with NASCAR on Fox. You're listening to Burning Rubber Radio on the Performance Motorsports Network.
I'm Captain Jeff Figures from Florida Fishing and Adventures. Do you want to constantly catch more fish, spend less time changing baits? If so, Monster 3X baits, jigs, and scents are the answer. Monster 3X baits are tough, durable, and resistant, which allows you to catch more fish per bait. The combination of the Monster 3X lure with the ProCure Baits Super Scent, you will be landing more fish right away. Whether it's the Monster 3X Ultra Soft or the X Swim lures, swim shad, paddle tails, crawfish, or the X Frog, Monster 3X, you'll always find it in my tackle box.
Visit our website at burningrubberradio.com for recipes from the NASCAR chef, John Dix, and more great content. Now back to more Burning Rubber Radio.
And we are back on Burning Rubber Radio on the Performance Motorsports Network, Tan Talk Radio Network, Wingding.tv. Wayne Owens, Joey Coulter sitting in for Andy DeLay this week. And, man, Joey, you've been, you were kind of having some fun going wee in the chair during the break there. You're really getting used to all this room in it, huh?
I've been living in a camper for the last year and having these kind of chairs. I mean, there's tons of room. This is nice. It feels the springs are a little bit unsprung now, but it's nice. It's not just big shoes to fill; it's big chairs to fill here at Burning Rubber Radio.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's almost like you talk about living in a camper for the last year and being kind of tight quarters, and now that you're in Andy's chair, it almost feels like you get a house right there for a chair, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just there's just a ton of pressure to do a good job, while he's gone, being a legend and all that.
Well, I don't know. Let's not fill his head with too many thoughts just yet. Oh man, but we're gonna get back into talking about things here with NASCAR from this past weekend at Michigan International Speedway. We'll be touching on the Xfinity Series a little bit later on in the show, so do be on the lookout for that one there. But the thing we do got to talk about, though, here, Joey, is the fact being that Chris Buescher officially outlasted Martin Truex Jr. this past weekend in Michigan, or actually this past Monday, rather, due to the rainouts up in Brooklyn, Michigan. And I got a chance to catch the end of the race, and I heard it on the radio, but then I went back and watched the highlight video afterward. And Truex was trying hard to get the crossover move to work, But Buscher's like, I ain't having none of that.
That's so cool to watch, and 2 in a row is just even better. Man, I feel like that whole organization and even Chris, like, they get so overlooked, and they've been so overlooked. But again, like it's part of the whole driver find thing is looking at the big picture, and they've had speed, they've been there, they've been around, they've had good runs, and now they've put it together 2 weeks in a row. And again, it's more than just a fast race car and a good driver, right? Like the whole package has got to come together. So really cool for him to do that. I got to race against Chris back in the ARCA days.
I was gonna say I vaguely remember there were times that you were racing against Chris. So what I mean from not necessarily from the driver refine perspective, but from the from the personal aspect. What are your thoughts seeing somebody like Chris, who you've been able to compete against, take the talent that he has to the level that he is at now in the Cup Series?
I think it's really cool for one. I think the fact that he got the opportunities that he got speaks volumes for the people that gave him those shots. I mean, he's been involved in everything. He's been up and down. He's been sat on the bench. He's been thrown into the fire. It's funny because he's not one of those big over the top personalities. He's super nice guy.
Oh yeah.
We'll talk to anybody, but he just goes about his business, goes racing, collects trophies, and and helps. And now he's helping build organizations. So I think it's great for him. I think it's awesome again for the people that gave him those shots. I think that was I noticed again back in the truck series, like when Brad Keselowski Racing had an ARCA team and a truck team, he was looking for guys like that. Like that's where I became buddies with Austin Terrio, that same BKR program.
Yep.
Ryan Blaney, same thing. Parker Klingerman, same thing. Ross Chastain even drove a couple races. So I mean, I think that was pretty forward thinking of Brad to be looking for guys like that. And then, obviously Chris getting the call up from Roush, and then Brad keeping him, and putting him to work, keeping him in work. And then now they're winning races together. So I think it's way cooler than just 2 wins in a row.
Very, very much so. And the interesting thing that we have to look at here too is that, coming up this weekend at the Indy Road Course, if and now granted, I'm going to say it's a big if, because like we were talking about off the air, the Gen 7 car has definitely leveled the playing field. So, guys like Chris, who might not have necessarily had some of the best equipment, even though technically Roush is a top tier team in the sport. Even though Chris may not have had what was considered top tier in the Gen 6 car, the Gen 7 car has leveled the playing field. But if, and I'm just going to use a big if for right now, because we don't know for sure what Indy's going to hold, if we're going to see a third week of a rain out when it comes to the NASCAR Cup Series. We saw it at Richmond. We saw it at Michigan. If we see it at Indy, what's that going to do for the road course, and so on and so forth. But a big if is if he can win at Indy or Watkins Glen in the next 2 weeks, he'll have the Triple Crown on 2023, winning at all 3 different kinds of courses.
Yeah, and I mean, with any road course race, anything's possible, right? Like, anybody that's got a car with all 4 wheels on it at the end has got a shot. Except maybe if you're the leader, because then you're the guy that's going to get punted. But I mean, I think again, like the speed's been there. They've been fast. They've had even Brad, right? Like you look at Brad's speed over the last few races. He's not been bad. Chris has probably been a little bit better, but Brad hasn't been bad either. So it's not like it's a fluke either. Right. There's some speed built into their cars. Just going from a short track to a big, 1.5-mile intermediate type track, that's a big jump. And when you can carry the speed over, that means that they're firing on all cylinders in that shop, cranking out good cars. They've got a good package. So I wouldn't be surprised if it happened again. But again, knowing it's a road course, I also wouldn't be surprised if it didn't.
Yep, very true. And so, I mean, good luck to Chris this weekend. Who knows? We'll see what happens if he can go 3 in a row or just somehow secure the Triple Crown in 2 weeks at Watkins Glen. We'll figure it out as we go along here. But a couple bits of other news that we want to touch on here real quick. Michael McDowell and Todd Gilliland are officially confirmed as of the other day to be back with Front Row Motorsports in 2024. On Wednesday, Front Row Motorsports officially utilized their option to re-secure both McDowell and Gilliland, and in turn had thought about going with Zane Smith for a third car, but decided to go otherwise.
Interesting. I'm happy for both of them. But I think it's also probably a lot of people, I think, would just think, all right, well, what's one more car? It's quite a bit than one more car, especially with, this Gen 7 car is still new. They're still tweaking, still changing things. So you could say, all right, we're going to start a third team, and then the new rules package comes out or everything gets changed. And now instead of just changing 2 things, now you're changing 2 things and buying a third. And that can get really expensive.
Yep.
And I mean, I imagine, again, Zane's still pretty young. He's obviously fast, got a lot of talent. So I'm sure there's some strategy being played there, and just, not jumping too far ahead of themselves and putting somebody's career in a bad spot because they're stretching themselves too thin. If that's the case, I'm just speculating, but it's cool to see some contracts and stuff coming together before the end of the year, because that just makes silly season will make a little bit more sense when we get there.
Joey, you forget we stay in silly season year round.
True. That's true.
But no, the other thing that brings light to the whole deal with Zane Smith and Front Row not wanting to secure him for next season too is that even though Front Row has charters as part of the charter system that NASCAR's, which personally I still say needs to be done away with, it's garbage. The fact of if they bring in a third car, they're not going to have a charter for Zane. So at that point, if Zane doesn't qualify, he's out.
Right.
So.
Yep. And I imagine, again, there's some strategy in there, but there's never only one thing going on. And again, Zane's done a really good job. Obviously, he's champion and had a lot of speed. He's taken advantage of the opportunities that have come his way. So it's the wild world of racing. So something I'm sure if he's looking for something's going to come his way.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll have to see what happens there. Moving on over now to SRX, and a little bit of news over here from the Superstar Racing Experience, which, man, we touched on it on last week's show, Joey, but I'm gonna get your thoughts real quick here, because Paul Tracy got himself indefinitely suspended from SRX for being a bonehead last week. So moving into things now forward wise at the Lucas Oil, our season finale at Lucas Oil, Indianapolis Raceway Park, Jonathan Davenport is going to be coming in for the series finale this week or in a few weeks.
I think that's going to be exciting to watch. I thought he did a spectacular job in the Cup race at Bristol. And again, I think for the sort of average fan or casual couch racer, as I would put it, probably was like, oh, well, he's a dirt racer and he didn't win. Like, well, the dirt cars are built to race on dirt. These cars are barely built to race on a racetrack. So he did a great job. I think these SRX cars are probably going to fit into his style a little bit more closely, just because they are a little bit more of a
They are far more tailored to look almost look like a dirt modified, but they have the capability to race on both asphalt and dirt.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's gonna be a really good show. Again, like the cool part about this series is you've got guys that are super, super talented. You've got guys that can win in anything and have won in anything. So, and I think that's, Davenport's one of those people that he's won just about everything in dirt racing that you can win. So I feel like he's wanting to branch out a little bit and go get some trophies from somebody else. And I think he's going to have a pretty darn good shot. I think it's awesome they did it, and I hope it's something they do more often.
You know what? I agree with you. Well, and we've talked about this off the air a little bit too, but they need to bring back the road course ringer. I mean, that would be well, not even just a road course ringer, just a ringer in general to, offer a little bit of competition to some of these big boys that, think they don't need to pull up their britches and try and actually race.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, I think it adds the flair to the series. I think it's cool to give somebody that doesn't get to race on one of those stages a chance to go, rub fenders with those guys in a not so Paul Tracy way.
We're going to step aside, though, folks. We're going to take our next 4 in fuel, though, and when we come back, Joey, you remember the NASCAR chef John Dix, don't you?
Absolutely.
Oh, man, he's got some good cooking, and we're going to talk to him about it when we come back.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Want to maximize your driving potential? Drive Refine is the driver optimization program for you. Led by NASCAR winning driver Joey Coulter. No matter if you race locally, nationally, or on a simulator, with a little or a lot of experience, Drive Refine focuses on your tuning scale to optimize communication between the driver and their crew chief. Visit driverefine.com for more information today.
Hey, this is former NASCAR driver Joey Coulter. This isn't your typical driver coaching. This is Drive Refine.
This is Burning Rubber Radio. Now let's get cooking in the kitchen with the NASCAR chef, John Dix.
And we are back on Burning Rubber Radio on the Performance Motorsports Network, Tan Talk Radio Network, Wingding.tv. Wayne Owens, Joey Coulter filling in for any delay this week. And look who decided to show up halfway through the show, Zachary Mertis. Zach, what is good, man?
Oh, everything's great. No, I just look like a travesty because I've been recovering from the flu all week. Had to pull out around 10 of the summer shootout. But, hey, it's fine. We're good. We're chilling right now.
Hey, as long as you're getting better, that's all that matters, right? And but you know what? It is that time. And actually, Zach, you showed up at the right time. It's time for the NASCAR chef, John Dix. John, what is good today, brother?
Hey, guys. Burning rubber, baby.
Burning rubber, baby. All right. And so, John, I hear this week we got something deer meat related, huh?
Yeah, Wayne. Hunting season's coming up in a couple months, and I decided to do a little venison and pear meatloaf.
Ooh, that does sound good, doesn't it, Zach?
I don't know. I don't like meatloaf. Never have.
But it's but it's
with
deer.
venison and pear in it.
It's deer, though.
All I know is the last time I ate meatloaf, I threw up. So we're just gonna leave it at that.
Well, Joey likes good meatloaf, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, NASCAR chef John Dix, hit us with it, buddy. What do we got this week?
Okay, we're going to start with 2 pounds of chopped venison. Now, for the folks that don't eat it, you can add beef to it instead. A half a cup of onion, chop it up. 1 pear, obviously you want to chop it up too. A half a cup of bacon bits or 4 slices of cooked bacon crumbled up. 1 teaspoon of allspice. A half a teaspoon of ginger. A half a teaspoon of cloves. A half a teaspoon of rosemary, and a little salt and pepper. Now, guys, you're going to preheat your oven to about 350. In a bowl, you want to mix together all your ingredients, your meat, your onion, your pear, your bacon, your seasonings. Make sure they're mixed all the way through. and you can put this on a loaf. I like making a meatloaf. I put it on a flat pan with some edges, and I just form it into a loaf instead of put it into a loaf dish. But whatever works better for you, go ahead. And you're going to bake it for about an hour at 350. And guys, it's that simple. Good comfort food.
All right. Well, that sounds pretty quick, pretty painless. And Joey, I think I'm a bit hungry. What do you think?
Yeah, I actually, I was just getting ready to take a screenshot of this so I can try it tomorrow night.
Hey, John, you got you. Yeah. Well, Joey's always been a fan of your cooking. So now that he's got another new recipe, we might just have to hook him up again, huh? Okay. Apparently that got crickets. So not sure what's going on there.
The guest host, man. I'm telling you, it's the guest host.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, Joey. I think everybody's scared of you, buddy.
He's doing such a terrible job. You had to wake Zach up. Come take the show. Joey's ruining it.
No, it's just everybody's scared of you.
Management just needs work. That's all.
Everybody's scared of you. They know how good you are. That's what it is. And but again, folks, if you ever want to reach out to the NASCAR chef, all you gotta do is send him an email at racingtothegrill. That's RACING 2 thegrill@gmail.com, or you can shoot an email to the general mailbox at mail@brr.show. That's mail@brr.show. And John, with all that said, buddy, here, you know we can't let you leave without those three famous words, brother.
Burning rubber, baby.
Burning rubber, baby. All right, and folks, with that said here, real quickly, take one last good look at the recipe if you're watching it on wingding.tv. If you need the recipe and you're listening to it on the radio, all you got to do, again, is head over to wingding.tv or to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Burning Rubber Radio in the coming weeks after the original airing on Wingding, and you'll be able to get the recipe there as well. With that said, we're going to step aside. We're going to take one final foreign fuel, and when we come back, we have got a whole lot more news to talk about, including Xfinity, F1, if there is any F1 news, and God only knows what else we're going to get ourselves into.
I'm Captain Jeff Figures from Florida Fishing and Adventures. Do you want to constantly catch more fish, spend less time changing baits? If so, Monster 3X baits, jigs, and scents are the answer. Monster 3X baits are tough, durable, and resistant, which allows you to catch more fish per bait. The combination of the Monster 3X lure with the ProCure Baits Super Scent, you will be landing more fish right away. Whether it's the Monster 3X Ultra Soft or the X Swim lures, swim shad, paddle tails, crawfish, or the X Frog, Monster 3X, you'll always find it in my tackle box.
Burning Rubber Radio is social. Like the show at facebook.com/Burning Rubber Radio. Follow on Twitter at twitter.com/BRR_PMN. And on Instagram at instagram.com/Burning Rubber Radio. Now back to more Burning Rubber.
And we are back on Burning Rubber Radio on the Performance Motorsports Network, Tan Talk Radio Network, Wingding.tv. Wayne Owens, Joey Coulter filling in for Andy DeLee this week, and Zachary Murtis in the house again with us here. And boys, Zach, you missed out on our conversation about Noah Gragson a little bit earlier on here, but we'll give you a chance to kind of get your take on things here. Virtually, the consensus between me and Joey back at the beginning of the show here is that it was definitely a very boneheaded move by Gragson to like that post on Instagram, but at the same time, NASCAR, if you pee in the sandbox, you got to pay the penalty at that point. But was it too much of a penalty, or was it just right?
Honestly, I think NASCAR was in the right to take action against Noah Gragson, but I think the whole situation itself is just, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you about it. It's stupid. There's a lot of ill-fated just crap on both sides. You've got Gragson, who, yeah, he probably shouldn't have done that, but you've got NASCAR maybe being just a little inconsistent. I mean, not too long ago, we had Kyle Busch calling Brad Keselowski a certain select word at Martinsville, and Hailie Deegan said that same word, and all they got was sensitivity training. Whereas Gragson, he didn't even say anything. And one of the things that I've seen on social media is that people are saying, well, Gragson should be able to do what he pleases. It's freedom of speech. Freedom of speech does not prevent you from consequences. I think a lot of people need to understand that. Yep. But I also agree with something that I saw on Twitter by fellow Monday Night Racer Presley Sora. He said, that this is the same guy, actually, who's been stalking drivers as far back as months, years, even as far as a decade, to find even just a little of things that can get them canceled. And if you're going to have guys who are running around on Twitter or Instagram just going all the way back into driver's social media to see if they can find any little thing to cancel them, I mean, what are we doing here? We can't just go off of what people on Twitter are saying. Drivers have their own mentality. I know that. Joey knows that. We both drive at a bit of a lesser extent to these Cup guys, but I mean, it plays the same all around.
It really does. And Joey, I give you a chance for a rebuttal there.
No, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything. I mean, I think that again, it's my philosophy the whole time I was in NASCAR was always like, just sort of don't put yourself at risk, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I was in college while I was racing in the truck series. I didn't go to parties. I didn't go hang out with people at massive house parties that I didn't know, right? And again, it's not related. It's a different type of scenario, but the thing is like, we all know that that's the reaction that you're going to get from things like that or related to that. We're all professionals. It's risk versus reward, and again, it may not have mattered to Noah. Like, he may not have thought twice about it, but that's part of the job. Again, the reaction is going to be what it's going to be. It's NASCAR. You can always trust them to overreact in some cases and underreact in others. Mm-hmm. No series makes great decisions, especially from the driver's standpoint, as part of our jobs. But I mean, as far as that guy, because I hadn't thought about that tweet, Zach, until you mentioned it, but I remember seeing that as I was trying to figure out kind of what was going on. And I do think there is sort of an issue with people, it's like there's a fine line between reporting and digging up dirt. I'm pretty confident I've never said anything that falls in that category or done anything like that, but I'm also pretty boring. So, but
I call BS on the boring part, but okay.
If I don't agree with going and finding dirt on people. I don't really think that's being a good media person. Calling somebody out on their mistakes, when it happens, when it's sort of in the moment, I get that. That is part of the deal. We obviously, nobody wants bad people representing our sport, but one thing doesn't always make somebody a bad person either. So exactly. I think both sides have to be a little more reasonable than I think everybody ends up being. But again, that's part of the environment that we're in at the moment.
Just that fine line. Sometimes you get crossed and sometimes you manage to stay on the other side of it. But at the end of the day, don't be stupid lest you be the stupid example for everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's another thing you can count on NASCAR is if they can make an example out of somebody, they will.
Oh yeah, yeah. That if I've learned that lesson a million times, I think I've learned it about 5 million times on top of that. We won't go into why though. But
what you be doing on the other side of that computer, Wayne?
Shut up, Zach. We'll talk about it off the air. But with that said, we're going to get into some news of the week here that we didn't get a chance to touch on earlier in the show here. The Xfinity Series did get their run in on Saturday, however, and John Hunter Nemechek brings Joe Gibbs Racing their 200th Xfinity Series win. Joey?
That was a fun race to watch. I caught, I'd say 90% of it between chasing the kids around and everything else, but really good race. Man, I was watching it and just thinking, man, I miss racing there so much. Spectacular racing, a lot of real good side-by-sides, some pushing, some shoving. The restarts at the end were, pretty exciting. And then, awesome for Joe Gibbs Racing and getting those 200 wins. I think I heard one of the commentators say that, like, 90 something of them were Kyle.
Wow.
Which I thought was amazing. Maybe I heard that wrong, but whatever the number was, I was like, holy smokes, that's a lot of trophies for, one guy to collect for a team. But yeah, really cool. Cool for John Hunter. I remember watching him race Allison Legacy cars when I was running in the past series in the Carolinas. So cool for him to get that win.
Most definitely. And Michigan, I do vaguely remember Michigan was always one of your favorite tracks when you were racing the trucks for Kyle Busch. And so who knows? Maybe you'll get to go back there again soon someday. We'll just have to call up our old buddy Jeff Striegel and be like, "Hey Jeff, Joey wants to go race on the track. Can he?"
If I could ever get that big Burning Rubber Radio marketing check to cash, I think I'd be there next year. But
oh, you mean the check? You mean the check for a whole $2.95?
Yeah, I'm still waiting on that check too, and I've actually got stickers on my car. So I don't know, Wayne. Let's see what's going on here.
Yeah, I was gonna say we got your $2.95 check in the mail too, Zach. So don't worry about it.
All the stickers are on the car. It's on the social media graphics. You're on my freaking racing suit.
No, we love you too, buddy. Some really good stuff all the way around in motorsports this week, but we do need to get ourselves over to picks here for the week. The graphic itself is not working today, or this week, so we will not be able to graphically display who had what picks this week, but I do have them all here for you. Andy DeLay himself went with Shane Van Gisbergen, even though SVG, I think, is only racing trucks. I don't think he's racing the Cup, is he, Zach?
Nope, he is. He is making his start with Project 91 on the road course, but SVG has said that he wants to run NASCAR full-time next year, and he's gotten multiple offers from teams, so obviously they need to get him oval starts. So he's running the trucks Friday night, and then he's going to run road course Sunday.
We actually talked about that last week, how his team in the Australian V8 Supercars has pretty much seen already what the interest was for SVG, and have pretty much offered him an open release from the team if he decides to sign with the NASCAR team for 2024. So
I'm actually kind of happy about that. I'm happy that teams over there know that, if the driver, and SVG has also said too, that even though the team offered him an open release, he wants to help find a replacement. He doesn't want to leave them in a bad spot. So I love the cooperation there between the team and the driver.
Right. Exactly. Some really good stuff there all the way around for SVG. And then, of course, my pick.
Just say real quick, sorry, I'm really disappointed I didn't get to make Andy's picks this week because I was just going to absolutely
I was going to actually say that too, Wayne. Why didn't you let Joey say something or let him make a pick? Like, come on.
Well, he's got a pick coming. He's going to just, guest host. We give you the feature spot. You get the very last pick that makes it special. When we round out the show.
I wanted to mess it up for Andy while I'm sitting in the chair.
Love it, brother. Love it. I would dare say if I had to make a pick, I'm not going to go with Van Gisbergen. I'm going to say I'm going to give it to Kyle Larson. I think Larson's going to probably do something this weekend at the Indy Road Course here. And then Taylor, from what I see here, Taylor did not get a pick in this week, so we're just going to give him.
He gets the pick of Josh Bilicki.
Is Bilicki racing this weekend? I was gonna say I didn't think he was. So
all right, tell you what though,
we'll give him.
I'll make Taylor's pick for him. I'll make his pick for him because I know probably who he's gonna go with. I'm gonna tell you guys that Taylor is gonna pick Kamui Kobayashi for 2311 Racing, stepping over from the IMSA side.
You know what? I totally forgot Kobayashi was gonna make his debut this weekend for 2311. So. That should prove rather interesting here. And then, Zach, who did you take, brother?
The guy who really needs a win right now, Chase Elliott. He needs that win. He's a road course ringer, and we got 2 road courses coming up back-to-back.
Well, that's true. I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens there.
And even if SVG wins Indy, they're still Watkins Glen. So don't tell me that it's not going to be a championship year. Just let me get my hopes up, man.
This is very true. NASCAR chef John Dix, who you got this week, buddy?
Well, I tell you what, guys, I hate to bust Zach's bubble, but his road course ringer has never won a road course in the new cars. So sorry, Zach. Sorry, Zach.
John. Just make your pick already.
I'm picking the Watermelon Man.
All right, so Ross Chastain is going out for the NASCAR chef John Dix this week, and Bobby Dale Earnhardt sympathized with Andy this week here coming up at the Indy Road Course, and says that SVG is going to get it done as well this week. Now, on to the best pick of the show here, and that being our fill-in guest host, Joey Coulter. Joey, what say you? Who do you think is going to take the Indy Road Course?
I'm going to go for the wild card if the kid stops screaming in the background. She's right on cue. So proud of her. I'm going to go for a wild card. I'm actually going to throw Corey LaJoie in the pot.
Okay.
Just watching, I know it's a crazy pick, but it's a road course, and these guys are crazy. So I think he's got a chance. They've got some speed at some places. And Corey's good, man. He's getting better and better and better in those cars. And I think given some of the craziness that we've seen in a lot of these road course races, if he's there at the end, he'll have a shot.
True.
Not a bad pick. Joey's right. Corey's been on a good uptick, but at least he's picking a driver who has a relative shot of a win, unlike John, who's going to pick a driver that's going to blow a corner intentionally and get a 30-second time penalty. You're going to call me out, I'm going to call you out, John.
Good stuff all the way around here, guys. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time. Boy, an hour's already gone by here, and it doesn't even feel like it. Joey, I got to say, buddy, thanks for sitting in for Andy this week. It was really nice to not have the chair squeaking this week with another fat guy here.
There's a lot of room in this chair. It was my pleasure. The shoes weren't the only big thing I had to fill. It was the chair, the hoodies, and I did make the shirt fit, though, with a couple bobby pins in the back, but it's a good time. I appreciate you guys having me.
Man, it has been an absolute blast having you on the show this week here, buddy. But with that said, we have got to get ourselves out of here for another week of the Burning Rubber Radio program on the Performance Motorsports Network, Tan Talk Radio Network, Wingding.tv. For Andy DeLay, NASCAR chef John Dix, Bobby Dale Earnhardt, Zachary Murtis, Jeremy Taylor, our resident wrencher every once in a while here, and for Joey Coulter, our guest host of the week. We love you guys, and until next week, Burning Rubber, baby!
Burning Rubber Radio is a production of the Performance Motorsports Network in association with the White Lightning TV studios in Statesville, North Carolina. This week's episode was produced by Wayne Owens. Remember to visit BurningRubberRadio.com for news, recipes, and more great content. Burning Rubber Radio may also be downloaded from our podcast site, PMN2.com, or from Spotify, iTunes, or Google Podcasts. The opinions expressed on this show are those of the hosts and guests and do not reflect those of the Performance Motorsports Network or the Scorpion Radio Group. Any use of the accounts or descriptions contained in this broadcast must be with the express written permission of the Performance Motorsports Network or the Scorpion Radio Group.